Hello, everyone. This is Marita, one who catches lightning, with the Path of Ish podcast, Walking with Our Shadow, where we share ancient indigenous teachings of remembrance, all so we can walk and learn how to walk a path of radical self-love. Hello, everyone. This is Marita, one who catches lightning, the Path of Ish, here with another opportunity to pause, to slow down, to reflect, to examine, to stay curious, and to find a different rhythm of life. So let us begin by setting the circle, acknowledging that we're going to be stepping into something very different, into a way of being that might be very foreign to you. And so whenever you're listening to this podcast, remember that this is a cultural exchange. That while at times we might use words that you might define in a way in the dominant culture, they might be used differently here. And we do our best to create bridges between these cultures by coming in a good way. So first, let us bring all of our parts into the circle. Let's take our 3 breaths together as we breathe in and out through the nose. Welcoming our mind into this time, into this place, in and out through the nose. Welcoming our body into this time and place. In and out through the nose, welcoming our essence into this time and place. And as we settle back into ourselves, as we connect, I want you to imagine before you a circle that you're about to walk into. A piece of ground somewhere on this beautiful earth, who is our mother, our father. Imagine this place, this clearing, where you've been in these places that all of a sudden you pause before you kind of enter. There's a sixth sense that you might have that, I might have to pause before I enter here. There's something here. There is something else here in nature. So imagine that you're asking permission to step in to a different way of relating, knowing that you are the foreigner, and asking for grace, compassion, and understanding and mercy as you let go of what you know. And so as we approach this vision that you have, this clearing, this circle in a clearing somewhere in nature, somewhere on this planet, a place that makes you feel good, we humbly approach the directions, the east, the south, the west, and the north, and we ask them. We acknowledge them. We acknowledge them not just as directions, but as beings. These directions have been how we have found our way through space, through centuries. And we're not the only ones with this internal compass. And so these directions have that memory, that pull of memory, that vibration. And if you've never thought of directions in this way, that's okay. We ask these directions who have been spoken about, searched for by all beings on this planet as a way to orient themselves. We ask them to orient us now in this circle. So we ask permission to enter, and just imagine yourself physically entering into a space. In my classes, many times I actually have students stand up and then sit down as an acknowledgement. And as we find ourselves here together, let's humbly approach Mother Earth as we ask for a root to reset us. We're taking our time to get into this circle, to just reset our clock, reset. Find ourselves where we are in this journey. And so imagine that root, right? We don't root down, we ask for a root. We offer who we are, right? We offer who we are as beings on this planet. And we ask to connect again. And as that root is offered to you based on your relationship with the earth, I want you to just take a moment to pause and feel that root. If you've been walking with me and walking at the path of Ish for a long time, whether in classes or just in this podcast, see if that root feels different. As relationships change, as you change, so does our connection. So as we feel into that connection, that honoring of you stepping into the circle every day and building a relationship. And if you need to take your 3 breaths again to just feel into that, just take the time that you need here right now. And as you settle in, we'll start to bring in the conversation that we're going to have. And the conversation is about creating from an unknown place or void, but also gaining perspective. Many times when we are trying to gain perspective, we want to see things from a different angle because we're stuck with what we can see and perceive physically, emotionally, intuitively, right? We sometimes get stuck. We get stuck in stories and habits. And so to gain perspective, sometimes we find ourselves standing up, standing on something, going out into nature and climbing a mountain. We see all those pictures of people climbing mountains and that awe, that perspective that they have, right? The idea of being able to come up from that valley of your life and leave that behind and gain perspective to reset. A reset. And we're in a reset right now, naturally. No matter where you are in the globe, we are in the Gregorian month of September, which is about either a fall or vernal equinox, a shifting of seasons. And as we are in this path of the shifting of seasons, of contemplation, where we're literally holding the idea of letting go as leaves let go, preparing for a death, a reset. And on the other side of the world, everything is waking up. And there's that space in between, that void space, where before there was light, there was darkness. And darkness is another way that we can gain perspective. Sometimes we don't have available to us the ability to climb mountains or to even drive up them. Maybe you don't live in a place like that, but you might have a place where you can go to gain perspective. I know we had a podcast once where we did a practice of observing everything around you and relating it to nature. And today, as I'm speaking, I present to you an opportunity to shift your perspective by putting yourself in a situation. I'm not talking about anything not safe, that will help you reset. So if you're used to listening to this podcast in the car, maybe listening to it sitting down at home. If you're used to sitting down and listening to it, maybe taking it on a walk. If any of this is available to you. If you want to just, instead of listen to it and have your eyes open and have a soft gaze or close your eyes, something like that. So take a moment right now, right? If you have to pause this and come back and just feel into what would be a way of just listening to this podcast today that would help you change perspective, but by maybe just physically changing your location. Even if it's as simple as moving from a chair to a couch or a couch to a bed. And I'm just going to invite you to do that. So I'm going to just pause as you take a moment to decide. And if you physically pause this and come back, that's great. So as you reset and as you're settling into your new space, I want you to become aware of how that space feels different. I want you to take a moment and observe how just by literally shifting your seat on a couch or from a couch to a chair, your view is different. You have a different view of maybe your room. Sometimes small shifts like this allow us to practice changing our perspective. And when we do so in a physical way, even if it's just closing your eyes and just listening, whatever is available to you, it changes everything. And so I just want you to take a moment to feel into the observation of this change of perspective. Change can be subtle. So many times we think that change has to be dramatic to mean anything. But we know that small, subtle things can create great change. Now, if I was teaching you in a class such as the spirit animal class or relationship class, we would go to the animal kingdom to gain different perspective. We would go to a being that flies and ask to see from their perspective. We would go to the insect kingdom that stays close to Mother Earth and sometimes goes underground to see from their perspective. We would go to something that is in relationship maybe also to this animal and the relationship that they have, maybe an owl and a tree, and the perspective that they have of each other in relationship. We would welcome the perspective of a fish. And the reason that we go to these kingdoms and the traditions that I was taught in is that we recognize that humans have limitations. We do. We can't see as much as cats can see, as much as birds can see. We physically cannot see all the spectrum of light. We physically cannot hear everything. And just those two senses right there, which we have a high value for, whatever capacity you have in them, there are other beings who are not humans that have a different perspective and relationship to the world because their eyes see more, their ears hear more. Yet we continue thinking in a very human-centric way when we just think of perspective. You might then now just ask yourself, why and how does this relate to everyday life, Marita? By staying curious and allowing ourselves a greater possibility or a different possibility, something that we didn't see or perceive or imagine. Allows us to return to a state of wonder and awe. And sometimes that means you have to keep changing your perspective, keep moving around. Whether it's just in a room and do it in practice, if you're someone who travels and you have the opportunity and that is available for you, and you do so in a good way of observing different ways of life, it changes your perspective. The possibilities presented to you become endless. And by having a malleability towards perspective, allows us to go to a place of creativity where we have relationship with creativity. We're not trying to dominate it. Therefore, when we are creating, we can go to the unknown. And when you are in your life in a place of the unknown, of things that are not familiar, whether it's your everyday life or you are having a crisis right now. Our world is having many crises. It always has, but now we get to live the crisis. So as the world is in a global crisis and how it trickles down to your life, maybe just by changing perspective, it will not seem like a crisis. We will be able to create from a different way of being that does not continue to contribute to the crisis. Small changes of perspective can open possibility. So, let us do a meditation to put this into action. So wherever you are, if you have the opportunity to be a little bit more comfortable, please take that. And I welcome you to take your 3 breaths again, resetting everything, welcoming your body, your mind, and your essence. As you do so and as you settle, I welcome you to close your eyes. I welcome you to, if it's available to you, put your hand over your heart and just feel yourself breathe. Feel how that breath moves through your body. And notice that as you change your breath, your hand moves. And you're probably like, well, of course it doesn't, Marita. But notice it. Look at how subtle it can be, or how exaggerated you can be. Using this as a guide, I want you to call in a situation in your life where you feel stuck right now. And I want to ask you to ask your body, how this makes your body feel as it relates to the breath. When you think of this situation, do you hold your breath? Do you breathe really shallow? Or do you catch your breath and breathe really deep? Now, let's just be playful. And please don't make yourself hyperventilate. Can you change your breath? Breathe differently into this situation, into the imagination of this situation. Okay, good. Now let's add something else. Let us humbly approach the animal kingdom and see if an animal will come to you and ask them about a different perspective. Now, for those of you who practice a lot of somatic release with your body, you can take this further and even observe this animal reacting with their breath and see how they breathe into the situation. And maybe you can match their pattern of breath when they are relating how to move through this crisis or this situation. Now, for those of you who do not have a good relationship with the animal kingdom, that is fine. I invite you to try something else. You can imagine the first image that we talked about being on a mountaintop, if you have that experience. And how do you breathe on a mountaintop? Well, you might have great perspective, and it's all inspiring. But high elevation, it's hard to breathe. And this example teaches us that we can't stay up there in just that perspective, that it is necessary to come down to an elevation where we can breathe so we can actually live life. But it's good to get a peek at a different perspective and then incorporate it in a way where you can live your life. Let's stay with this a little bit longer. And slowly start coming out, bit by bit. Take your 3 breaths. Give thanks to whatever animal came to help you, or the mountain, or whatever being when you asked showed up. And if you had no one show up, that's fine. There's nothing wrong. You can do this as many times. You can even pause and take your time doing this. So let us here slowly come back with our 3 breaths, giving gratitude, thanks. To our body, our mind, and our essence. To this practice, this small practice that allows us perspective. To the animal kingdom. The animal kingdom wants one more thing to say. So many times when we want to change perspective, right? We have all of these things that tell us to be like these, when we're scared, to be these big things like lions and tigers and bears, and imagine yourself from that perspective. If you were like that, you wouldn't be scared. But let me tell you, in many of the traditions that I come from, some of the most powerful allies are the small ones. I mean, look at what mosquitoes can do. Doesn't matter what size you are, they will affect change. Or look at mice. They can definitely affect a lot of change. So sometimes when you are looking to change your perspective and you want to feel empowered, which is what we many times want to feel, sometimes it's not about being big and dominating the situation. Sometimes it's about being smaller, to have a completely different vision. There we go. I said it. Mouse definitely wanted to come in today, so thank you so much. And with that, we'll slowly close this larger circle that we have of relationships, of conversation, of the 3 breaths, of the topic of perspective, of being able to go to a space of the unknown and finding that from here, when we create in this void of the unknown, the potential is boundless. But if you are trying to create from the known, you will just continue recreating what you know. So let us slowly walk out of this circle. And as you do, imagine yourself leaving this circle that you imagined in some place in nature. Give gratitude and thanks to the east, to the north, to the west, to the south, to the gardens above and below. As we exit, we release the root back to Mother Earth, giving thanks for that perspective that they gave us of how our relationship has changed, therefore the root has changed. Thank you for reflecting back that change. And thank you to all of you who continue listening and sharing this podcast. May all beings continue to find freedom as we walk away from limited stories, beliefs, and societies. And may we have the courage to ask for help, to find good teachers, and to hold ourselves accountable, because this is our life. We get to choose to live it. To gratitude to all my teachers who have given me permission to share these teachings with you and these practices. Shade. Once again, it is with deepest gratitude that I bow to you for joining me on this podcast, this episode, this circle, this plática, this meditation, this remembering. I hope that you have stayed curious. I hope to see you in the circle again next week. So make sure that you like or follow. Until then, may you be blessed with abundance of peace and radical self-love.